In the previous tutorial, you learned about the snappy.axi and that it can be included in your code as a useful reference. This tutorial will demonstrate how to add the snappy.axi to the master code, where to add include files, and the ordering of sections. Normally, files which are to be referenced from the master source file are first imported into the workspace and even copied into the project folder. With snappy.axi, it's not necessary to copy it from its default location, nor is it necessary to create a shortcut in the workspace. When Netlink Studio is installed, a host of useful libraries and files are installed along with it, including the snappy.axi file. Netlink Studio knows the default path and therefore where to find it when referenced. All that's needed is an include statement. For example, include filename.axi. The hash or pound sign, signifying a compiler directive, always immediately precedes the keyword, while the file name is case sensitive and encapsulated in single inverted commas. It's not required to add the file extension, because the compiler knows what file type to look for by the directive. Nonetheless, it is a good idea to get into the habit of using the extension, otherwise Netlink Studio will always assume it to be AXI. And if you are including an AXS file, you will get a file not found error. In case you have forgotten it, you may browse to and open the snappy.axi file from its default location here. See Program Files, Common Files, AMX Share, AXIs, snappy.axi. While it isn't necessary, it is on occasion handy to have the shortcut available in the workspace for quick and easy access. There are no problems with doing this should you wish. To add the shortcut to Netlink Studio, right-click on the Include folder for your project in the Workspace bar. Then click on Add Existing Include File. Then browse through C Drive, Program Files 86, Common Files, AMX Share, AXIs. And there you have the snappy.axi. Select it and click Open, and then OK. I declared the include statement at the very beginning of my code, directly above the Define Device section. By doing this, you are able to use any of the snappy constants anywhere in your code. However, this snappy include is unique. While include files can technically be declared anywhere in code, it is recommended to exercise due diligence and normalize the coding structure. Typically, most AMXers slot the include statements in at the end of the defined subroutine sections after the function definitions. I'm now going to create my own include file. Over in the Workspace bar, right-click on the Include folder and select Add New Include File. We'll name it My Include, and we won't change the location of where the file is stored. Hit OK. Notice the include file is almost empty. The only thing in the file is program name equals myinclude. You can now write code in here the same way that you would in the .axs file. There are a couple of things to remember when working with include files. Unlike when we created our main source code, the include file does not have the template automatically built in. Therefore, if you wish to define a device in your include file, you need to remember to put in the define device keyword. Or if you just want to put some button events in this include, you need to remember the define event keyword. When finished writing whatever code you desire in this include file, we're not going to compile the file. Instead, we're just going to save it. We're not quite finished yet. We created the include file, but we still have to call the include file from the main code. Directly below the define subroutine section, I'll add the line include myinclude.axi. As mentioned, include statements are compiler directives and are only processed at compile time. The compiler consolidates the include files and compiles all the AXS and AXI files into one consolidated TKN file. Compile your code and make sure you have 0 errors and 0 warnings. The key thing to bear in mind is that once the include file has been included in the source file, all global identifiers have overlapping scope and will conflict with any other identifiers of the same name. If you remember back in lesson 1, we created a constant called play. But now that we learned about Snappy and we included it in our code, we can now comment out the play equals 1 constant because it already exists in the Snappy include file. Recompile the code and make sure that you still have 0 errors and 0 warnings. If you have any errors, review the lesson again before moving on.